Hello, horror fans. It's me, Cassandra from the Horrorcraft Podcast. And tonight I'm flying solo, but I have a very special guest, Josh from the Super Scary Podcast. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you? Thanks for having me on.
I'm excited. Your podcast kind of has a similar vibe to ours with just
Yes.
the way that things kind of transpire naturally in there. So I feel like this is kind of the best of both worlds. As Kylie would say, one of us, one of us, one of us. So, but we're super excited. For those of our fans who are not familiar with your podcast, how would you describe your podcast?
Like we were talking a little bit off mic before we started. Um, Super Scary is a tangent-filled, hot takes abound podcast. I'm relatively new to being a fan of horror. So I started in like 2018 with the Halloween 2018 movie because my best friend loves Michael Myers and the original Halloween. So, and her birthday is the day after Halloween. So, all of that to say, she really wanted to go see this new, well, at the time, new iteration of the film. So, that kind of sparked me to get into horror. Um, but yeah, so then I started this podcast 2 years ago, and here we are talking to lovely fellow horror fans such as yourself.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy because my best friend Zane, who is a part of this podcast, he actually started out the podcast as just helping me out, kind of being my assistant. And I would make him watch certain movies when he would come over, and like he would come over sometimes and spend the night and stuff. And we would watch movies, and constantly he'd be like, "What the hell are you making me watch?" And so it just transpired into like, okay, so then when he became a co-host, it's like, okay, we got to ease him into
Right.
everything. So finally we've got it. Like, I was super surprised. We did an episode where we were talking like horror hot takes, like movies that deserve better. And he had gone out and watched session 9 by himself.
Oh
And that's
wow.
normally not something he would do. So I was like, see, win, we did.
Yes.
So, but it's not like he wasn't interested in it. He just didn't I he didn't have a friend like me to push him into that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Sometimes you need a friend to like help you, like hold
yeah.
your hand a little bit. Like,
Yeah, there are movies that we do for the podcast that I'm like, listen, I'm just going to show up to your house sometime this week. We're going to watch it because if I'm going to traumatize you on this level, I'm going to be there. I'm going to
yeah.
help you assess this level because I don't feel comfortable like doing this to you by yourself and then having you just like be freaked out by it. So we've gotten him to the point where he's like, yeah, I think I could pretty much take on a lot right now. He says that, but then I feel like there's still some things that we're not even going to get to that level yet.
Yeah.
So, but no, I think that that's fantastic. So, we'll go ahead and get to some icebreakers. I am
Ooh.
horrible at doing a ghost face impression. I am absolutely like, we're not even going to try because it's just going to come across not the vibe that it's supposed to. But this is kind of a hard question, especially for somebody who watches a lot of horror in general. But what is your favorite scary movie? It could be like one right now or one in general.
Gotcha. Um, so it fluctuates a little bit. But I would say maybe like my top three right now
Mhm.
are Halloween, the original from
Mhm.
79, right? 78?
Yeah, I think it's
Yeah,
78,
78.
79.
Yeah. I should know that. I reference it on my podcast like literally every week, but that's a tale for another time. So Halloween 78, the original Scream, and Train to Busan. Like
Oh,
those are like
mhm.
my three. And oddly enough, I really like zombie apocalypse films or just like apocalypse type films in
Yeah.
general. So obviously we'll get into it with today's episode, but this one like really appealed to me for some reason.
Yeah, there's something, I kind of am the same way too. I am always either one way or another. I am always looking for vampire films that I
Oh,
have not seen, or TV shows, stuff like that. But zombies are another big one for me too. Train to Busan, like when I watched that for the first time, I was gutted. And I still tell people all the time, like, listen, if you're gonna watch this, let me come over. We'll watch this together because
yes.
this is gonna kill you inside.
In one
It's
way
one
or
of the
another.
yeah, in one way or another, it's a whole other level. But no, it's just I think it's the idea of being put in that kind of situation.
Yeah.
And I also think it's like the subconscious idea of that, where it's like people can kind of be the worst in those situations too.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
and you really see like the dual layers of everything. So, which is crazy enough because it brings us to our next question. But what is your favorite subgenre?
Of subgenre.
Mhm.
Hmm. So are you talking like slasher, zombie apocalypse, like
Yes.
those types of things? Okay.
Yeah. Because oddly enough, slashers are my favorite.
Yeah, I was gonna say I probably go for the slashers first. But I guess I like the 90s. Like there's just like something about the late 90s slashers that really appeal to me, and it's probably because I'm a 90s baby.
Yeah.
But like just something about that like really appeals to me, or something along the lines of like I had an example and now I forgot that. So you can delete that if you want. But yeah, just like the late 90s and then kind of like mm, maybe like early 2000s as well, cuz like I this is a hot take number 1. I really like House of Wax only because
Oh,
Paris Hilton's in it. And she really should have been the final girl. Again, tale for another time, something I bring up semi regularly on my
I
podcast.
mean, I kind of fuck with that though, honestly, because I feel like people don't give her enough credit for how good she was in that. So like she really committed, and I don't think she's that big of a horror girly. So for her to go like
Yeah.
full tilt on that, and just in general, like that's a remake of an older movie, and to be
Yeah.
that much of a punch, and you
Yeah.
had a lot of really big stars like Paris Hilton, Chad Michael Murray, everything. And it's just the set design. And I mean, I still internally cringe when the wax is coming down on some of it.
uh
Oh,
yeah.
I couldn't.
The
So,
super gluing of the mouth
oh,
at that point, and like whenever the one guy steps on what's her face's fingers when she's like,
yes,
yeah, there's a lot of like good. And I'm so squeamish when it comes to like gore and shit
yes.
sometimes, which is why I haven't dived into like the Terrifier movies yet, because I know that that's just gonna like I'm just
Yeah,
not there yet.
yeah, you kind of have to prepare yourself for it. It's funny because I like when they first came out, I was like, I don't know how I really feel about these. And I had a lot of friends who were like, just get into them. And I watched them and I was like, I still really don't know how I felt. So I kind of kept going back. And then, we had David Howard Thornton on the podcast.
Oh,
Um,
awesome.
and so talking to him, like, and how both him and everyone involved in those movies, like Damien, the director and everything, kind of changed my view a little bit, but still, like, I feel like I have to like gurge my loins before I
Yeah.
prepare for that because it's going to be fucked up. Like,
Yeah.
you just know it's going to be bad, like bad in a good way, but it's just also one of those things where you have to like digest it
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
fully.
Yeah. I've definitely seen a couple of like stills from it, like
Yes.
especially Terrifier 2. And I think it's one where the girl's like hanging upside down and
Oh,
he's
that's
just
from
like going out.
Terrifier 1.
Oh, okay. I was just like, mhm.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't
no.
know. It's not the girly pop slasher that I love. You know what I mean? Like it's just
Right.
not that energy.
Yeah, I feel like he, I I understand that because I'm pretty hard on certain films. I feel like you can't rely on gore too much.
Yeah.
And I feel like there are some films that get misaligned by that. Like I notoriously did not really like the Saw series until I had a friend kind of like be like, okay, well, it's a deeper story because I was just like,
Same.
it just seems like gore porn to me, and I'm just not
Yeah.
about that life. But she kind of changed my mind about that. And like I've watched some extreme films, like I watched Martyrs, and I will tell you, I watched that once and I will never go back and watch it again. It was like, I see what they're doing. It was beautiful. I cried, but it also like really made me go, what the fuck?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think I'm okay with the one-time experience. So, but no, I get it 100% because I'm more a practical girly. I like, more of like either the deep psychological, the paranormal, or I
Yeah.
like a good creature feature.
Yeah.
I feel like I have issues because I'm a monster like I am the kind of person that I'm like, well, I could change him. It will be fine. It'll be fine. Like if if so he killed people, like it's fine. As long as he doesn't cheat, I'm good. Like I'm the kind of person that really just like I don't know what it is, but I'm just like, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
It's
So
yeah, I mean that energy is me. The I can change him energy is so real when I watch Skeet Ulrich
oh my
in
gosh.
anything.
Yes, yeah, it's crazy because like I was saying to you when we were talking because I listened to the episode that you had dropped today about the craft, and obviously Skeet Ulrich is in that. And one of our friends of the podcast, she's actually going to be coming on soon, but she wrote a whole book series that's like horror smut that is based on each novel is based on like the one is Ghostface, and it's like a play on Billy and Stu where it's a girl
Oh.
and like the two of them with masks. But then there's like a Michael Myers one. There's like a Jason one. So she has different ones. But as soon as I heard that, I was like, yeah, that makes sense. I'm like that makes sense. Like I don't know what it is, but there's just something about you that you just like he's horrible, especially in
Yeah.
Scream. Like he's a bad guy, but at the same time you're like, but maybe he wasn't socialized properly. Like that could be the
Yeah, I can change him. It's okay. He can wear the mask. It's
yeah.
fine. It's fine. And you know what? I blame TikTok. That's why I need to get banned because it because it desensitized me to the point that I was like, you know what? This is fine. Like
It's
I had
fine.
an I had an existential crisis in December whenever I was with the Scared Gay podcast and we were talking about something. Oh, I think they were hosting some sort of like I think it was like a drag slash burlesque like horror
Hmm.
themed show in California, and they were talking about how some of them were wearing the masks, and like one of them was like had the mask of like it or whatever, and I was like, that's a little too much for me. But yeah, drawing the line, right? But Ghostface is fine, or Michael Myers, but whatever. Um,
No, I completely understand because tangent wise, my biggest tangent on this podcast, and my co-hosts love to activate me on this all the time, is Phantom of the Opera. Like everyone was on drugs when they decided that Raoul was better than the Phantom. Like the Phantom is
yeah,
he's got his own place. Like he is morally gray, he's hot. It's Gerard Butler. Like I'm already sold. And you're telling me that we're choosing the fuck boy who literally forgot about her until she became famous, not the guy who's been pining for her and like would do anything. I'm like, I can't get behind that. I'm sorry. I
mm-mm,
can't. So
mm-mm.
they constantly are like, anytime somebody nears Phantom of the Opera, they're like, don't do it. Don't
Don't
do
do
it.
it. Don't
Don't
don't say these
activate her.
words.
Yeah, don't activate her. But it's also the mask thing too, because when he takes off the mask, it's only slightly bad. Like I mean, he obviously he got burned, but I mean like he's still Gerard Butler underneath there.
I
Like
mean,
I
Got half
mean,
a good face. It's fine.
right. I mean, he's got a good half of a face. It's fine. It's
Yeah.
fine. We can make it work.
Yeah.
So, uh, speaking of Gerard Butler, because he's definitely one of mine, but if you could have any guest come on your podcast, what is your dream guest?
Oh, oh my goodness. That's a good question. I mean, Nev Campbell or Jamie Lee Curtis would absolutely like that would do it for me. Um, but well, actually, even more so than that, probably Elvira, Cassandra Peterson. She would be
Same,
fun. Yeah.
same. It's funny. If you've never heard this story before, but we had Peaches Christ on for the podcast,
Oh, I
and
love her.
oh, love her. And we were talking about Elvira, and we were talking about how Elvira goes by Cassandra Peterson, and I'm Cassandra, or so I thought I was. And I sometimes like let my grandmother listen to little clips like before, like when I'm editing and stuff like that, because she doesn't really like, she knows what a podcast is. She's a very hip grandmother. Um, but for to be in her 70s, but she was listening and she was like, "Your name is Cassandra." I was like, "What are you talking about?" I was like, "It's Cassandra. You guys call me Cassandra because it's, German, like that." I figured that that's what it was. She's like, "No, your name is literally Cassandra. That's who you were named after. Like Cassandra was a character on Young and the Restless, and my mom named me after her." And so I'm like, "Wait, how did I forget this?" And they're like, um, "You just came home from school and said the kids wouldn't pronounce your name right, so you kept going by Cassandra." So ever since then, I'm trying to go by Cassandra because obviously that's my name. And like, I feel this really weird, like, sense of like, holy shit, like people took my name from me. Like, I literally,
Yeah.
like, but it's like potato, potato. I'm like, I slip up because I didn't know about this until like recently. But I'm just like, I'm so morally, but now I feel like, okay, obviously Cassandra Peterson and I are one step closer to,
Yeah.
yeah, being, in
I
the same
mean,
realm. So, but yeah, I was just like, so she goes by that too. And which is so funny because like I was supposed to be a boy, so that's why my mom, like my dad went overseas and my mom had me and she was like, "Okay, we got to come up with a name now because we didn't have a name before you left." And so she was watching Young and the Restless and there was Cassandra. And so she's like, "Cassandra Lee," because my grandmother's name is Lee. Like 3 or 4 weeks later, Cassandra gets killed off Young and the Restless. Like she gets hit by a bus. She never is coming back. So I'm just like, I
well,
t-
never say never because soap operas are
oh
notorious.
yes,
And
yes.
let me tell you, at my work, we have like a cafeteria area
Mhm.
where they serve lunch every day, and they play The Young and the Restless in there sometimes. And the same people are on there from when I was watching it with my mom in the 90s. So
Yeah, well, I know that because, and I'm sorry, Grandpa, but my grandfather watches Young and the Restless. Like to this day, he got my grandmother, my great grandmother, what he would watch it with her. So now he watches it all the time.
invested,
He is invested.
invested.
So they watch it, but I was like, but she still hasn't come back. So I'm like, "Grandpa, if she comes back, you have to tell me." But I don't think she's coming back. So but I literally, I used to tease my mom. I'm like, "Listen, if I get hit by a bus at some point, it's because you named me after that character." So she has never lived it down
I love
from
that.
that point. But yeah, Elvira would be, I don't even know if I'd be able to talk. I'm gonna be honest. I
Yeah,
would I would just blank.
I love her so much. I would love. She hasn't really come on the East Coast for like cons and stuff. Like
Mm-hmm.
she normally stays West Coast or like she might go to like Florida or something.
Mm-hmm.
But I've been keeping an eye
Because
because
you're in Pennsylvania, right? Or
um
no, you're in the DC area.
yeah, I'm in Richmond actually.
Okay,
So
so because
yeah.
I'm in Ohio, and same, I keep looking out because she
Yeah.
came to Horror Hound like 4 or 5 years ago,
Yeah.
and I missed the boat on that one, and she hasn't come back since. But
It's because you didn't go.
I know I'm primed and waiting. Like I have the Elvira Living Dead doll and everything, so like I'm
Oh,
waiting. I'm
yes.
waiting because I want to go get it signed. I want to meet her. I probably
Yeah.
will embarrass myself trying to speak, but I mean, it's fine. It's fine. I'll find it. I'll find the word somehow. Either that or just have to bring somebody with me to be like, this is what she would say if she could talk right now. So, but no, I would love if she did guest stars on anyone's podcast because I know that she doesn't really.
I don't
Um,
think she really does, but I feel like
I
maybe
feel
she hasn't, but I know that she's like friends with like Peaches and
yes.
a lot of them out in California. So she might do something with them, but that'd
I,
probably be the
I
extent of
mean,
it.
we're just gonna manifest it. We're just gonna manifest
Yes.
it. We're gonna manifest it.
Yes.
So this is gonna be an even harder question,
Oh
because this is
no.
like picking a favorite child. But what is your favorite episode up to now of your podcast?
Of my podcast. Oof. Well, hmm. I will say, probably because it's fresh on my mind, but I did just drop an episode on the craft and I thought it was really good.
It was fantastic. If you have not listened to that episode, go listen to it now. I'm a craft girly, so as soon as I heard that you were doing that episode, I ran. I mean I didn't actually run because I'm not gonna run, but
Yeah,
I
me
mean
and running.
metaphorically I ran over and
Me and
watched
running
it.
don't work out well.
But
But
no, I feel like a lot of like 90s people that they gravitate, especially
yeah.
90s girlies, we gravitate towards that because that was kind of like you either had Clueless or you had The Craft or you had both where you were just
Yeah.
like I'm both sides of this coin, but
Yeah.
you fully invested your personality. Also I feel like it was a huge like sleepover movie. I remember watching that at a lot of
Oh yeah.
sleepovers.
Hmm.
That practical magic
Oh yeah.
were
Yeah.
huge. I mean, we did watch some other ones. Like I notoriously we traumatized one of my friends by showing her Ghost Ship at 14 and that opening scene with the heads and stuff. She could
Oh
not handle it.
no.
And so she locked herself in her in the our friend's bathroom and called her mom and was like so
Get me out
upset.
of here.
Get me out of here. So, I mean, to be fair, that's a pretty intense scene, but I mean, like, it's fine. It's fine. So
Yeah, she's fine. She
she's
survived.
fine. She's fine. She survived. Um, but that's definitely a good one. I see for me, I just don't, we did a ghost ship episode. We did a ghost ship episode.
Did you invite the friend on?
No, because we're not friends anymore, but uh, I'm sorry.
Okay. Listeners, I almost spit out my water. So
I mean, just like that,
I'm just easily
it wasn't
amused.
because of that, but it was just like years later stuff. But I'm sure she's still probably like, fuck that
Oh,
person. They made me
yeah.
watch Ghost Ship. I'm part
That's
of the
the root.
villain. Yeah, I'm probably
The
part of her
villain.
villain origin story. It's fine. It's fine. But Ghost Ship was a funny one because we had two new co-hosts last year, which was crazy because it was like one after the other. And this was the first episode we did with my friend Kylie, who we go to a special needs family retreat together. Both of our sons have autism. And she came on. I don't know what it was. I don't know what we were on. I don't know if it's like we were having a placebo effect, all like, you know, going off of each other. But one of the funniest things that ever happened was we were talking about how the pool fills up with the bodies and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, that probably was at least somewhat like real skeletons because like back in the day, I don't know, maybe at that point it's probably CGI, but I'm like, people give Poltergeist a hard time, but during
Yeah.
time period that Poltergeist was filmed, real skeletons were cheaper to buy than to make a fake skeleton. So I
Yeah.
don't know what happened. One thing led to another, but I was like, it's okay if your grandmother is in the background of Ghost Ship living it up. Um, she's living her best life. She's going to get credited for a horror movie. It's fine. And we just kept going, and somehow we came up with Grandma Gertie is somehow in the background of different films. And from then on, it built its own personality. And our one co-host, Zane, has very thick glasses at that time that were big. And so we started calling him the real life Grandma Gertie, and we just, yeah, it was bad. So, but it was that. And then our one co-host, Mary, she notoriously loves to commit to something and comes in on her bullshit. And this episode actually is live on YouTube, but we did a episode of The Descent, and she said, oh, okay, I'm going to come in, and because she couldn't actually film with us. So she's like, I'm going to do a bit. And I thought she was going to come in and give her opinions. She had her camera turned off, and I'm on the other side because she's like, okay, you could stay in if you want. She comes in, she has a cave background. She's got the headlamp. She's got everything that makes her look like she is in The Descent. And she is
Ah,
doing her whole entire review as if she was stuck in the cave with them. And I'm literally like, you could see me on the other side, like trying not to die inside. But I lost it. Like I as soon as we stopped, I was crying. I was like, how did you even, I don't even want to know. I don't even want to know. I don't even want to know. So, but no, I mean, those are two that definitely,
oh my
but
God.
Grandma Gertie, I mean, so if your grandma's in the background of a horror film, it's fine. Like
Hey,
at this point, if my skeleton ends up in a horror film, I'll consider that like great
yeah,
for the
like
plot.
sign me up. Like,
Right. So, what is a podcast? It could be horror or not, that you would recommend to somebody. Either it could be in like the vein of your
oh,
podcast, or it could be something that you just feel like needs to get some recognition.
gotcha. So I'm actually part of a like a fandom podcast network called Deus Ex Media.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a lot of great shows. One in particular that we just
Mm-hmm.
added on is called Burn Before Reading. And it's where my good friends Leela and Christina talk with their guests about cringy writing that they wrote in high school and or college. And one of their first episodes features me where I wrote a review about Beyonce's album 4 in college and I trashed it. And I also
Oh,
received lots of hate mail from Beehive. So we talk about that. We also
that's
talked
fantastic.
about, yeah, we also talked about Twilight on there. Yeah, so that's a great podcast. I think if you're like me and love the girly pop aesthetic, it's just
Mm-hmm.
it's right there. So
Yeah, yeah, no, I fully agree with that. We had done some collabs, one of which Steve Coates, he does the Bucket of Chum
I
podcast.
love Steve. He's so
Steve,
fun.
oh my gosh, Steve had one of my best episodes of 2023 because I don't know how we like landed on this together, but we were doing a vampire month and we decided to do Sharkula, and that was a ride. That was a ride.
The movies he covers,
Oh my gosh,
redonkulous.
they're
I'm like, where did
ridiculous.
you pull this out of? This
Oh,
can't be on Tubi. Like
yeah.
there has to be some depth of the internet that you found
There's some
this.
that just like we just had one, our co-host found one that I guess Linda Hamilton did. That's like a shark-esque movie, something like that. And because we were talking about her for like a badass woman in horror. And I'm like, man, we need to get Steve on this right away. Like we
Yeah.
need to come back and do this episode. But I never thought I would talk about a movie that was shark related that also had Dracula that was sort of a cult that also feels like you might be on the weirdest high of your life. And that's
Yep.
really what it was. So that was great. And then Joanna from Coven of Screams, she is fantastic. And we just did an episode with her. And I mean, my face, I mean, we had to take a couple of takes because my face was so red from laughing at certain parts. And my co-host, God love them, but we had just had an argument like not an argument, but a debate as you do when you're in a like it was friendly enough, but
Yeah.
we were talking about I Know What You Did Last Summer, the previous
One of my
before,
favorites.
and I was talking about how Sarah Michelle Gellar's character deserved better. And thank you.
Snaps for that.
I feel like even though she was a mean girl, a lot of it was her boyfriend. Her boyfriend was a jerk.
Yes.
And if she had survived that experience, she would have been a better friend to Julie, and she would have been in the second one going after Julie when
Yes.
that whole thing happened. My co-hosts do not believe that though and think she's the Regina George of the horror realm. And so we're having a debate about this, and they're coming after me and saying, you only are saying that because you love Scooby-Doo. Admittedly, I'm a Buffy and Scooby-Doo fan, so like,
I mean, who isn't an
right.
SNG stan? Like,
Yes.
hello.
Yes.
Scooby-Doo, The Grudge.
Oh.
I Know What You Did Last Summer. Buffy.
Yes.
Did I say Scooby-Doo? Yes.
Yes.
I will say it again.
I mean, and
there's something else I'm missing.
She's in everything. I mean,
Yeah,
truly.
there's another one that I really like that she
Cruel
was
Intentions.
In, Cruel Intentions, that's what I was thinking.
Yes. And
yes.
So we had a spirited debate about that. So the following week, Mary decides to ask Joanna what she thinks, and poor Joanna literally got dropped in the shitstorm of all shitstorms where we were like going back and forth. And I mean, it was fun, but like, yeah, I mean, that was I was like, she's never going to want us back again, which isn't true because we are going to go see her at GhoulieCon. We're going to GhoulieCon, but
that's awesome.
But yeah, I was just like, but her podcast is great, and she does a bunch of different things, and I feel like she's kind of in the same realm as us. We don't really like to stick to like the standard of horror. We like to do everything across the board.
Yeah.
And if it's something weird and unusual, we're here. So I think she's kind of in the same vein. And so yeah, so it's interesting. But yeah, so I would say those two. Steve definitely, because again, I just every day I think about Sharkula.
Yeah.
I really do. And I'm just like, why is there a shark themed Dracula movie? But it worked.
Yeah, I'm like 90% sure I saw a post from Steve that was like, it was like preacher shark or like shark priest or something like that.
There's a couple ones.
I was like, what?
Yes, there's a couple of ones that we were talking about. Like, there are some like Nazi sky shark ones. There are some like Nazi shark ones, and I'm just like, okay, so but just some of the ones, and I really have to go and watch all of them because I just need to know that this is something that exists. I have answers, so but yeah, I mean, Steve, we love you. Thank you for keeping us in the know with sharks.
Yes.
So I don't know.
I thought Sharknado was bad. Like you know what I mean? Like
in Sharknado, at least you could kind of be like, you know what, this is crazy, but this is a good time. Yeah. I mean, I guess anything could happen, really, right, if you think about it. So, but thank you for playing the icebreaker. That I hope that wasn't too hard. But we are getting into kind of a crazy one.
Yeah.
This is kind of one of those that I'll think about from time to time and be like, is this actually a movie or is this just like a fever dream? Because we're used to like regular creatures, right? Vampires, werewolves, ghouls, demons, ghosts. I mean, anything across the board, mummies. But that's not it. This is pretty nasty. I mean, it's goo. It's killer goo.
Killer porcupine goo, to be specific.
Like pine cone, like little, I don't know if you have like those trees out where you're at.
Like, I hate those trees.
I have those trees in front of my house all the time. And I mean, like when it's flip-flop season, they get in my shoes all the time. And I'm just like, if this were Splinter, I'd be dead now.
Yep.
I'd be gone. I'd be out. So, but no, it's interesting, because it's not what you would think of, and it's gross. The
Mm.
way it latches onto people, the way that it manifests, and the fact that all of these are practical effects, are kind of mind-blowing to begin with. But this is just it's just interesting. Was this your first time watching this?
It was, and I have to tell you, I watched it this morning, while I was at work. Don't tell my boss.
It's okay.
It's okay. It's okay.
It's
It's fine.
okay. We'll
It's
keep
fine.
your secret.
Yeah. But I watched it and then I had a brief existential crisis. I have a lot of those apparently. Where I thought I was supposed to watch Slither because they're both very similar in spelling and like
Right.
you know what I'm saying? And they're
Yeah.
kind of creature features. So I had to go back to our Instagram chat and like look real quick and I was like, did I just watch the wrong movie?
I mean, truly
But
though, that could happen. You know what? It does happen because we just had an episode where he finally spilled it, but our co-host Zane, we did Fright Night, the
uh-huh.
original,
Yeah.
and we had on Jamie McGuire. Have you ever seen From, the TV show on
Uh
MGM Plus?
no, I didn't watch that. No.
Okay. So you'll have to get into it. But anyways, Jamie plays one of the creatures that are from, and he has this menacing natural smile that I mean, like he gives the Joker a run for his money. Like he is
Oh.
creepy. But the Fright Night is one of his favorite movies. So we were talking about it. And I noticed that Zane was a little quiet, and I couldn't figure out why. And I kept asking him questions, and he just kind of kept giving me a
Just
look.
like, uh-huh.
And come to find out, once we're done with it, he had watched the Fright Night, the Colin Farrell edition. He had not watched the
Oh.
original with Chris Sarandon. And so, like, for most of it, he's perfectly fine because he's like, he's understanding what we're talking about. But he's like, you guys were talking about the ending, and it wasn't the ending that I watched. And he's like, I didn't know that there were two. And I was like, I did put that in the chat, but I mean, like,
Yeah.
we chat all the time, so like it's probably lost
It gets
somewhere.
lost, yeah.
Yeah. But he was like, I felt just so bad. He's like, I'm just trying to survive this conversation here. I don't want to flag you down and
I'm
get you
fighting
to
for my life.
but it does happen. So I mean, don't feel bad. But I mean,
Yeah.
Splinter or Slither, I mean, we could have made it work either way.
Yeah.
It would have been fine.
Yeah.
Um,
But
but
yes, to answer your question, this was my first time watching it. And I just initial thoughts, I actually kind of liked it. I
yeah.
went into it with very low expectations and came out surprisingly it was surprisingly enjoyable. And I laughed a couple times, which I didn't expect.
Yeah, there's just something about it. It's just it's very simple in certain
Mhm.
terms, because if you think about it, the biggest part is the part where they are in the gas station and there are certain things going
Yeah.
on, which I'm going to be honest, if you're stranded somewhere, like it, grocery store, gas station,
Yeah.
those should work.
Yeah.
Um, but just the way that they use the space, I do like that. The way that they use the goo as like the organism.
Yeah.
Um, and I like that this kind of highlights, they really try in the beginning to make the main protagonist, the main male protagonist, her boyfriend, seem like he's kind of a wuss. And
Yeah.
he ends up being like the smartest. And I kind of take offense to that because listen, I'm not good at camping. I'm not good at any of those things, but I
Mm-mm.
have a bunch of random knowledge that I feel like I could keep my life with me. So, I mean, he made it work in the end. And I mean, spoiler alert, but he is the one that ends up taking the guy's arm off halfway
Yeah.
through. Like he's the only one
Yeah.
that really like he was like, we're gonna just take it off and just
We're gonna do it.
do it. And I feel like same.
Yeah.
Like I'm that friend that okay, your arm has to come off. We got to do this.
Yeah.
We got to
We're gonna
commit to
do it.
this.
Yeah.
So But if you have not watched Splinter, it is currently on TUBI, along with a bunch of other platforms, but TUBI is our favorite. We love TUBI, especially because TUBI lets you know when things are going off their streaming service. Um,
Yeah.
that's
Honestly, Tubi's coming in clutch for horror podcasters, let me tell you.
yeah,
I I
it
was
really
looking
is.
I was looking through and I saw this one obviously. But like Hellraiser, Child's Play, the Terrifier movies, I was
Yes.
shocked that Terrifier 2 was on there already. So now I'm like, maybe I can watch it. Like I'm trying to gear myself up for that, but
Um, it's a ride.
yeah, so
You
I
might
don't think
have to
it's just
watch it in pieces. Like,
yeah.
um, I
Pause
mean,
it, take a
yeah, pause
moment.
it, come back, it's fine. I mean, I think honestly, truly, I think it's as big as it is because of the people behind it. I mean, that's what really made me fall in
Yeah,
love is David as a person is just absolutely wonderful, and he has not forgotten about any of his fans. He is routinely like that guy. Um, like we ended up talking for an hour and something after he was on there, and I was like, this is David Howard Thornton, like,
that's
and
awesome.
I'm like, he's taking extra time to talk to me because we were talking about like autism because he was diagnosed later in life, and we were talking about that
Oh
because
wow.
obviously my son is autistic as well, and for me it's a big thing that somebody is so open about it, because I think it's great to show that there are so many
Yeah.
things that you can do regardless of your limitations, even though I don't feel like that's a limitation. I feel like it's something you have to learn to live with, and you can do whatever you want. But just the fact that he's out there and he's doing the things that he's doing, I think are just fantastic. So,
Yeah.
but I would definitely say work it up because I know I did. I like he even told me about like kind of a little bit about the second one and like how it was going to be amped up and stuff. I wasn't even prepared with that little bit, like, and I still
He
haven't
was
had a
trying to like ease
yeah,
you
he was
into
like
it,
he
but
was
he
like
should
it's
have just
okay.
shoved you a little bit.
Well, and he's the Grinch too. He is the Grinch
Right,
and a mean
right.
one, and I really
Hmm.
want to watch that. But I'm a little scared. I'm a little scared. So I haven't watched it yet. I did see that it's more available on streaming now, so I'm gonna work up the courage. But yeah, I'm a little scared. Grinch is my mom's favorite, and I love the Grinch, and I just don't know if I'm ready to see him as a serial killer, but then it also makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense.
It makes sense. Um, but yeah, this movie, I am the kind of person that when I like something, I commit, like especially to the people that are in there. So I want to know, like, if I like you that you were in a certain film, I want to see all of your films. Like I want to see,
Yeah.
especially horror. Like I'm gonna go through your IMDb. I'm gonna watch every movie. So Jill Wagner was actually in Blade, the TV series, which was on Spike, and I feel like
Oh.
I was one of the few people that actually like watched it when it was on Spike. But I loved it. And I thought she was great, and the guy that plays Marcus Van Sciver. So I watched both of their stuff. So that's how I found out about Splinter. And then it just was on sci-fi a lot. Sci-fi for me growing up in the Midwest was like the holy grail.
Oh yeah.
Like bow down to sci-fi, like we're not worthy, we're not worthy. But I remember seeing this and I'm just like, oh, it has her in it, and not expecting it and just walking away after. And I think I was like 15 at the time and being like, what the fuck did I just watch? Like,
I had a little bit of that energy today. I was like,
yeah, you
did I
kind of walk
really
away.
just did I really just watch something about a porcupine virus zombie,
Yeah,
potentially post-apocalyptic type shit?
they never really mm, they never really talk about it. They never really tell you what is going on with that goo. Like you kind of find out a little bit from Seth. That's who's played by Paulo Costanzo. If I butchered that, please don't come for me. And Jill Wagner is Polly, his girlfriend. But she's kind of the more masculine one, where he's more, he's got a PhD and stuff like that. But this kind of, in the first half of this, you see the part where the gas station attendant in the beginning gets, got by the porcupine substance. And, but you kind of forget about that for a minute when you see Polly and Seth. But then when Dennis and Lacey get involved in
Uh-huh.
there, that's a hot mess, man. I mean, that is
God.
already a bad time to begin with, because like, uh they're getting kidnapped. It's
Yeah.
like kidnapping is already happening. It's bad. um Lacey's tripping and
Oh,
coming off.
she is tripping
God,
hard.
the
God.
the scene, like when they are in the car and that thing happens with the tire, and she thinks that she hears the dog, her puppy,
Mm.
and she takes Seth to go look at it, and it's like, it's dog bits with goo. I mean, just the way to
Yeah.
describe it. And she's like, "You could save him." I'm like,
I'm
he
like,
was a lot
oh
nicer to
no,
me.
honey.
I would have been like, "Listen, there's no fucking saving that dog. I'm sorry. Unless you want to go to Build-A-Bear, we're done. We're done."
Not Belka.
I mean,
Oh
if
my
anyone
God.
could to bring somebody back together, it would be them.
Yeah.
So, um,
Yeah. Yeah. It was actually kind of sad,
y-
honestly, because a homegirl is like, she's either coming down off a bad trip or something. And I was, there were so many moments aside from like, obviously them stopping in the
yeah,
first place. I'm like, why the hell are you doing this? Um, but there were so many times that Polly wanted to like, she was about to like
she's about to
get
get him.
Dennis. Yeah.
Yeah,
And I'm like, get him, get him, get him, get him, get him.
yeah, you do. But then through the movie, you kind of end up liking him, and you're kind
Yeah.
of like, I mean, you're kind of a dick for all this shit and kind of the reason we're in it, but you're not a bad guy. You're not as bad as we were led to believe.
Right.
But still, this is some shit.
Yeah. They're still in that shit because of him.
Yeah. Yes.
But all things considered, yeah, it seems like Seth is like the voice of reason or the voice
Yes.
of like uh what's the word I'm looking for, kind of being very hesitant,
Yes.
and it like doesn't want to do anything to like
The
upset the balance, right? But like
yes.
Polly's like, I need some action. I need this to move along. I need Dennis to get got if he needs to get got. Like,
I
which
mean,
honestly,
do you feel like you're more of a Polly or more of a Seth? Do you feel like you're more reserved, or do you feel like you'd be like,
I think I'm more of a Seth in this situation, and my
mm-hmm,
husband Frank would be more of the Polly
mm-hmm,
person of like he would get some action going. Although I think I would be like Seth in the cooler whenever he has to like chop off
yeah,
the arm. Like I think if I'm pushed to that brink of having to, you know, do something as crazy as that, as cutting off a limb, I could probably do it. I won't like it.
I won't. Yeah, you won't like it at all, but
Yeah.
it'll be fine. I kind of feel, so the reverse. My significant other Jim is probably more of like Seth, where he's more reserved and stuff, and I'm like that meme where the person is coming across the other person, like, like I'm. If this is Real Housewives, I'm Teresa flipping the table.
Yes.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like
Yes. Flip
that's
the
my
table. Flip the table.
that's my personality, especially with my friends. Like I always say, my friendship should come with a warning label, because I'm sorry, but I have no you get no chill. Like, you mess with one of my friends, I've just gotten to a point in my life where I just don't deal with bullshit. And I am mostly reserved during the day because obviously I'm a mom and I have to have patience with my child and just life. But I mean, it also doesn't help that my child is me times 20. Like, my child, I'm bad, but my child will read you to filth. Like my child just has no filter. He just says whatever is on his mind. And I mean, my co-hosts are like, listen, I wouldn't want Brayden to read me. I would not. I would pass. um, so, but I'm very much like, I say what I feel, and sometimes that could be a good or a bad thing.
Yeah.
But I am that person that's like, no, you're either going to get your shit together or we're pulling over this car and you and I are about to fight.
Yeah.
That's really what's going to happen. So I definitely feel that. But yeah, and poor Lacey. Oh, it's
Yeah.
just it's just bad because you know that she's trying to, like, in a way you do see it so much. Like, once they do get to the gas station, you see that, he's like, don't get high, and he's like, not asking her, but basically kind of be like, you need to give me your stuff.
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to get you across the border to get you clean. And she's just, I mean, it's just a hard time for her. So then when she opens up that door and there's the station attendant and he flips up,
Mm.
first of all, as soon as he flipped up, gone. Like,
Yeah,
I would have
I
turned.
would maybe shut the door first
Yeah.
and then it would jolt.
I, I would just turn into, I don't know what. I would just be gone. Call me Frozone, because I would be I would be I would just blast my way out of there. I mean, just slide out of there. So but it's so crazy to me because so much happens in that one scene that kind of sustains us action wise for a bit.
Yeah.
um because then we get more into the nitty gritty. But like, the gas station attendant is like coming towards her. She's trying to warn everyone. She's like, listen, there's some shit. They don't believe her because she's tripping. And he comes after her, ends up going to the car, ends up smacking her on the curb, killing her.
Mm.
And they have to get in. And there's a point where Polly's like, yeah, we're not letting him back in. We're not we're not having him in here with us. No, no.
We're not doing that.
This is an emergency situation. We did not sign up for this. And
Yeah.
Seth is more like, he's a human being. Like, we need to maybe think about this.
Yeah.
I
I
don't.
think I probably, like, even though I am more of a Seth in general, I think I would have like, I think Frank and I would have agreed in that moment to somehow, especially whenever Dennis goes back out to look
Yes.
at Lacey's body. I
Yes, and
would
he
have,
thinks she's alive. And
yeah,
I'm like, her brains are literally like, they're out.
like, your hand is on her brain, which is on the curb.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, there's no mistaking it. Like,
yeah.
there is a puddle of blood. And like, when she like does the flip too and like comes after him, I
Mhm.
think that's the craziest part to me, is the movements in this, where it's like that.
Yeah.
It's almost like a xenomorph kind of thing, if you know what I
Mm.
mean. Like,
Yeah,
where,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
the xenomorphs, especially, it's on my mind because we just did an episode about aliens. But in the background of aliens, when all that shit goes down in the hive, a lot of the
Yeah.
aliens are like hiding in plain sight, and you see them just like turn, and then they're
Mm.
like going after
Mm-mm.
you.
Yeah, no.
And that's what I think like Splinter is.
Yeah.
Um, and I mean, are we calling it Splinter? The goo, porcupine goo? I don't know what we're calling.
I don't know, but like, over time, especially with the the policewoman
Mm-hmm.
scene, and kind of this like morphing into this like, uh,
Creature.
this like, yeah, it looked like something out of like Rick and Morty,
Yes, it does.
or like, insert any weird Adult Swim cartoon, like
Mhm.
any of that. It really was giving that, and I was like, ugh, don't
And when
like
it's
that.
on the roof
Mm.
and you can hear it moving and stuff.
Mm.
So
Nope.
yeah, so we kind of just got into it, but basically they get trapped into the gas station.
Yeah.
There are some choices made. One of the limbs gets in there and the hand is literally coming and it's like split. And I'm just like, ooh, ooh. Like there's just something inside of me that's just like, I could do a lot, but a severed hand that's like, nope, nope, not doing it. So they kind of have to like figure out how to survive. Um, it kind of annoyed me a little bit that it took them that long to think about the freezer.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I was trying to figure out the layout of
Uh-huh.
like the door to the walk-in, which I guess was in that like back area where
Yeah.
like the back door was. And like none of them really thought about that. But I guess you're not thinking like, oh, let me go into a cold place. You know what I mean? To
I
like
mean, I'm gonna
hide,
be
but like,
honest. That's immediately what I'm thinking. I get hot
yeah.
naturally, so
Oh, true.
I'm just going in there for a vacation, if we're being honest.
True.
Like, sign me up.
That's true.
Um,
That's
I
true.
sleep super cold to begin with, but I also, being from Ohio, we have hella gas stations. Like we have Sheets, we have Speedway, we
I
have
love me some sheets. I could
oh
live in there.
sheet Sheets is my jam, especially when we're traveling.
Uh-huh.
That is the place to be. But that's immediately like what my mind goes to. I'm like, I've been at a Sheets. I've gotten the drink. I know what's back there. Like, I'm just gonna push that thing back, get my Coke Zero, and hang out back there. Like, they
I
can
have a
figure it out.
blueprint for every sheet.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
it's
and it's really like every Sheets is the same in a certain way. Like it really
It
is.
really is.
So,
It's funny that you mentioned Pennsylvania earlier.
um,
I actually grew up in Pennsylvania. So
mm,
I grew up near where she started in
yes.
Altoona, Pennsylvania or whatever.
Hmm.
And they have this big giant one in Altoona.
Yes.
That's where I'm heading first because they got the big beer cooler and
Yeah.
we're hiding in there and we will not need any splinter goo coming to get us.
No, I mean, if they just stayed in the freezer, they would have been fine.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess technically that doesn't work because eventually something would happen. I don't know, but I mean, you could at least have chilled out there. The thing with the cop annoys me the most. I don't know about you, but I follow various people on TikTok, but one of the things that was going around like horror trend wise was the most unrealistic thing about horror movies. And somebody was like, the cops. They're like,
Mhm.
especially after a situation, they're like, there's no way that it just disappears like that or happens. Like, same thing. Like, I'm sorry, if a police officer was missing for a period of time and they had just called in and said that they found a fugitive, there's no way that they would have been like left to their own devices for like
Yeah.
a long period of time. Like I don't unless I'm missing a key component of like they mess with the radio or something,
Yeah.
but like that clearly went through. Like they heard the radio afterwards like with the different people. So
Yeah.
like there had to be a dispatch like that heard that or something, or like if they don't check in for a period of time that they send somebody. I mean, they were doing a national manhunt for Dennis.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny that this cop acted like she knew Dennis,
Yeah.
like in like the way she was acting, and I was like, did I miss something?
Mm.
Like I
It's
was
because they were looking for him because he had escaped and they
yeah.
knew what he looked like because of obviously the bolo that came
Oh,
across with his information.
yeah, I guess
So,
so.
but no, she really did. Like she was like, I like the way
She
she
was like,
looked.
I know who you are.
She was like, "You're fine," and they're like, get in. Like if you're witness it, like if this is a violent crime that you think that this person has committed and there are witnesses telling you you need to get in right away, Don't you think you would listen? Like, if somebody's telling you there's something that's going to come behind you, I'm the first person that would have been like, okay, I'm going to walk right in here, close the door, lock it. Let's just watch this situation for a minute. And then I would have been like, oh, okay, that's what you were trying to tell me about. But it just RIP to the cop.
Yeah.
And it's so bad because she gets split in half and her other half is left there. That was like a whole.
It's possibly the most gruesome of the
Yes.
deaths. Like, at least Lacey got like literally like
She just, hers was
done.
quick and done.
One and done.
And hers, I mean, and they come back for the second part, like when they're trying to get the radio to call it in and stuff.
Yeah.
And they're doing that whole MacGyver situation.
Oh,
no. Mm-mm. I mean, and then we get to where they're in the cooler. Dennis has like an infection from his finger from where the goo got on the tire. He got in it and he pulled it out like the porcupine. Okay, so that was the worst part to me, is him pulling it out. Like it sticking out and pulling it out, because that to me, I mean, that just gave me the ick, right? Like, it's just icky.
Yeah, I hate doing that, like, for my own self. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, no. It's fine. My finger will fall off. I'll be okay. I didn't need that finger anyways.
Fine.
I'm fine. It's fine.
It's fine. Everything's fine.
So they kind of try to come up with an exit plan, and Seth, before this, when Dennis is having the problems with his arm, they're like, okay, we got to take his arm off. And they're literally using an X-Acto knife to like.
Which is insane. They had a freaking like axe in the truck or car, whatever they had. And I was like, that would have worked so much better. But I guess at that point, they didn't really come up with a plan to like go outside.
My thing is why didn't they hit it with the brick in the first place? Like, don't you think that would have been easier if they had just knocked it over time, like kept knocking it where it was like disjointed, and they would be able to just be like, psh. I mean, either way, that's gotta hurt.
Yeah. And then literally the dude's Dennis is just sitting there.
He's just chilling there. They're having a beer.
And they're having a beer. He just lost so much blood, probably. And he should not be drinking beer.
In reality, Dennis would be dead. Like, let's be honest. In reality, like, after that, like, he'd be dead. Like, at least it was possible when Ash did it with his arm and he chopped it, because he got a clean chop and he put that, chainsaw in right away, and he was like, groovy. This guy, like, his arm is mangled off and gone, and it's just, I know, it's just like, and it's like, yeah, I didn't know you had it in you. Yeah, he took your arm off. Like, somebody had to do it. Homegirl wasn't doing it. The one you thought,
Polly was starting to lose it a little bit.
Yeah, Polly was gone. So then Seth decides, in his infinite wisdom, that he's going to lower his temperature with ice and everything, because it seems like the creature gravitates towards the goo. When I say goo, I think of, because I am a 90s kid, I think of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers and the movie that had the goo in it. I'm like, they should have checked if Rita Repulsa was like right around the corner. Like, was she her or Zed? Was this the beginning?
Was this their doing?
Is this the horror version of Power Rangers? Like, because I mean, that kind of looked familiar a little bit. Like, maybe this is the updated version of that. But he decides to lower his temperature, and it works.
Sure.
Except he's losing. The part that gets me is he's freezing, right? He's holding on to that, and the ice keeps falling out, and I'm like,
oh no.
You don't think that's gonna attract something? Like, I mean, I understand heat signature, but like, you're making noise. Like, that was half the bag. Like, that's a hot commodity in the summertime in Ohio. You know what I mean? Ice on that level. So I'm like, that man literally like lost $5 worth of ice.
And he's like shuffling along to Buffalo, like just literally like going as slow as possible. And I was like, was he the right person for this?
Yeah, yeah. Was he maybe we should have sent Dennis because at
Maybe we
least
should have sent Dennis, like low
he
stakes. If he died,
yeah,
it's fine. We're good.
we
We're
can make it out.
inside. Yeah. We
We can
got
make it out.
beer, we got food, we can survive for a
Yeah.
bit, right? Yeah.
So Dennis decides in his infinite wisdom that he is going to sacrifice himself because the goo gets back in the gas station. It's going after each one of them. It's like a whole like shootout. You see everything just going everywhere. And Dennis decides, you know what, fuck this. You guys go. I'm going to take care of this because we learned in the cooler that Dennis was a bank robber, and on his last job, he ended up killing a truck driver accidentally. Well, he didn't kill him. He ended up disabling his spine, and that led to a lot of medical bills. And that's why he was going to the bank. Is that's where Lacey had put his nest egg, and he was going to give it to the trucker's wife because the trucker did eventually pass, and he left his wife with a lot of medical bills. So he was going to give it to the wife and then dip to Mexico, which good plan. Just bad delivery. Really bad delivery. Like next time we might need to think that through,
Maybe
vision
don't
board.
kidnap people. Maybe
Yeah.
don't get attacked by goo that has suspicious porcupines on it.
Yeah, I think that just you need to go back to the vision board on that one. You need to,
Yeah.
you need to spend your time, visualize it, mistakes were made.
Yes.
So maybe next time, well, there is no next time. So um
Whoops.
well, so they're running out. Dennis ends up lighting the thing on fire, and Dennis is like, you know what, fuck it, I'm out. And so he tells them, take the key, go take this and give the money to the truck driver's wife and go live your life. And he ends up exploding himself with the gas and everything. This whole time it's been like they're under a huge tank of gas,
Oh
which
yeah.
is not the greatest situation to be in. You're flammable.
Also, there was like a period where they were like, okay, we're gonna like, I didn't really
Yes, where they do
understand
the
this
where
line of thinking, but
they were going to put lighter fluid to the forest. They were going to so that way they could go out the front to
Mhm.
attract. I just don't lighter
Mhm.
fluid gas.
Yeah, they were like,
This
It's fine, it's fine,
it's
everything's fine."
fine.
I was like, "Ma'am, it is not fine."
It's not. It is really not. They do make it out. Polly and Seth do make it out. Seth is a little worse for wear because he's still trying to get his temperature up. And they both agree, fuck this. Next time we're going to Hawaii, which solid plan. Solid plan.
Yeah.
I mean, at least then you won't have to deal with like demon porcupine goo.
I mean, hopefully. Like we don't
Hopefully,
know where this
hopefully.
goes.
Well, we never do because the last part of it is you see the mangled dog that was on the big tree because that was like Seth's thing in the beginning is he's a big forest guy and he could tell the
Yeah.
different trees. But you see the goo on the tree and it's still alive. So you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like you never get answers for that.
And you also don't get answers of how Seth and Polly survived the night, like because there could have just been more creatures out there. Was it
Yeah.
self-contained to this gas station aside from this random dog?
I
Like
feel
we
like I feel like they kind of tried to explain it by being like, "Oh, well, it's a huge explosion. The fire trucks will be there soon." Listen, they didn't show up for the cop. They did not show. So unless it's like literally like a mushroom cloud above the forest and you could see it for like
yeah,
everyone to come, I mean, truly, like, I don't
like
know.
like literally out in the middle of nowhere in
And they're just
Oklahoma.
walking. I'm like, have you ever seen Wrong Turn?
Yeah, so many things about this movie. I mean it's riddled with zombie movie tropes and I'm like, do
Yes.
they not know anything? Do they not watch these?
They haven't watched the tape. They
Yeah.
haven't watched the tape. They haven't rolled it back. They are not going forward, yeah, it's a mess. Really truly is. So for anyone who was interested in the plots of Splinter, I mean, we kind of
There's not
explained it.
much.
We
There's
kind
not
of
much of a
explained it,
plot.
but this is from IMDb. I will link this in the description down below. It says, trapped in an isolated gas station by a voracious splinter parasite that transforms its still living victims into deadly hosts, a young couple and escaped convict must find a way to work together to survive this primal terror. I mean, gripping. It makes you really, really want to watch it. This is it's a good ride. It really
Yeah.
is. It does a lot with its tight spaces. It says a lot. And this is not a high budget movie. This is by
Oh
Magnet
yeah.
Productions, which did a lot of like 2000s, you know, blink and you miss it, or like sci-fi productions.
Yeah.
And so but I mean, it does well. So all these facts came from IMDb, but the creature effects were done all practically. Shea Wiggum ad-libbed a fair share of his dialogue. He's the one who plays Dennis. He is also in if you have never seen it, and it's kind of strangely in the same realm as this movie, he is also in a movie called Blood Creek with Dominic Purcell and Henry Cavill. That's like Nazi zombies, sort of.
Okay. You had me at Henry Cavill. I'm a little concerned about the Nazi zombies, but we'll make it through.
I mean, it's Henry Cavill and Dominic Purcell at their like, this is before Henry Cavill really like popped off and did Superman. This is like in between that period of like, because I watched Henry Cavill and I go back. Like I used to watch The Tudors like 15, 16. And I'm like history, but also a ton of sex and violence. Okay, I guess I'm signed up.
Okay.
So, but him and John Rhys Meyers were in it. But I would like religiously, again, if I love somebody, I will follow them. And the fact that they had a movie that came out with him, Dominic Purcell, and Michael Fassbender, and it's like a zombie Nazi, like almost Texas Chainsaw version. Like it's really like, it sounds like a fever dream. It really does, but it is a great movie. But Shea Wiggum is in it, because the whole time I'm rewatching this the other day, I'm like, where is he for? Because he has done a lot. Like he's in the
Yeah.
background of a lot of different movies and stuff. But I'm like, where is he? And then I saw Blood Creek, and I was like,
That's it.
That's where it is. So, he was actually the first person to sign to act in this movie too.
Okay.
So which makes sense because his
Yeah.
character does play a big part of it. This was filmed over the course of 20 days. So
I could believe it.
tight, tight space.
Turnaround, tight space.
The gas station was added on to this film. Originally, it was supposed to take place out in the forest, and they decided to add the gas station on, which I think is a good element because it does.
Yeah.
The forest, I think, is a little bit redundant for something like that.
I think it would have drug on. Although I think if it established that they were gonna like be camping and it started there, and then maybe they had to travel to the gas station or travel through the forest to get to civilization or something, or be on a campground with other campers. Like I think something like that may have been a little bit better for this.
Probably.
But
I mean, I feel like it gives Wrong Turn vibes. I say that because the original Wrong Turn and the newer one that was like the soft reboot were both shot in Hocking Hills, which is here in Ohio. And so every time I think of Hocking Hills, which is like super popular, it's got like all kinds of, I'm like, yeah, no, I'm good on that one.
No, thanks. Yeah.
I'm good on that one. So
I'll stay in a bougie hotel. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm gonna stay on a hotel like near here. Cannibalism, no. So just no. So the gas station attendant, he wore the hat that he wears in the film to his audition. That's just a fact that we
Love it.
just needed to know. The key that he gives Seth and Polly at the end, the address that is listed on the tag is actually the address for Wrigley Field in Chicago. So, you know, propriety, I guess.
Yeah.
It's fine. So the film was shot in widescreen in order to give it a bigger feel. So I mean that's an interesting choice, most definitely.
Yeah.
So I would really like to see more unconventional creature films.
Yeah. I think that's why I enjoyed this so much, was that it wasn't necessarily the same. It definitely, like I said, took on a lot of the zombie apocalypse type
Mm-hmm.
tropes. What comes to mind, obviously this came before this movie I'm about to say, but it reminded me a lot of World War Z, in
Yes.
the sense that one scene where Brad Pitt's in the cooler with
Yes.
the medicine and stuff, and I was like, oh, I've seen something like this somewhere, but technically this did it before it, so maybe they took it from this movie. But
Yeah, it's crazy because when we were talking about this, I was saying either this or Feast. And Feast kind of has the same vibe of this, where it's like the bar in the middle of nowhere and shit gets brought to them. Although I will say Feast is fucking visceral. Like everyone fucking die. Like children, dog, like anybody
damn.
that like the first one is bad. And I rewatched these recently because they're all on Tubi. So there's 3 Feast films. But like babies, children, like I mean it
Damn.
is definitely not one for the faint of heart. And I would definitely say we talk about this all the time on when on other episodes that we've done. But I would definitely say if you know you have certain triggers like dogs dying or certain things happening, I would definitely suggest checking does the dog die? Because there are a lot of the triggers that you can search movies up there and they'll tell you the triggers and everything that's going on there. So I definitely think if you're that kind of person that knows automatically that this is probably going to be a note for you and you want to confirm that, I would just go ahead and advocate for that. Horror is supposed to be fun. So I mean if you feel
Yeah.
like okay, I know that this is probably going to fuck me up a little bit but I'm okay to watch it, that's fine. But if you're going to be traumatized, please don't force yourself to watch something because you feel like it makes you a horror fan,
Yeah.
because anybody could be a horror fan at any level. So, I mean, period. But period. Uh
Period.
but yeah, don't traumatize yourself unless you feel like you're prepared for it. So, definitely check that out. Feast though, it does have a similar vibe to this, and I would say if you are somebody that is easily offended by really topped up gore and different things happening, Feast is not the one for you. Because I was like, whoa, how did I forget all of this? Because it's been a couple years since I watched it, and I was like, whoa,
Yeah.
okay, like babies being thrown up in the air in the second one, and like
Oh, damn. They really
different
said
things.
fuck them kids.
They truly did. They truly did. And it's not correct. It's a funny film that's just meant to be like a big comedy, like what the fuck. And so if you're not gonna vibe with that, that's not the film. But another great one is what you're talking about with Slither. Slither is an unconventional creature film as well. Again, though, that is pretty gory as well. So if you do not like slithery things or, people exploding, stuff like that, that's not the
Mm,
film for you.
yeah.
So I would not highly recommend. But if you liked this and you want to check that out, we'll link those down below because I'm pretty sure all of those that I just talked about were on Tubi, which again,
I,
Tubi,
I
we
think
love you.
so. Yeah, if Tubi wants to sponsor both of our podcasts, like hit us
Oh, that's the
up,
dream.
please.
Listen, TUBI, you should, because like
You
we
should.
talk about you all the time, in a great way, in a great way. So, TUBI really is honestly the place for horror fans anymore. Like,
Yeah.
it really does have one of the biggest catalogs that like. Tubi has like 10,000 plus horror, at least that I know of, because I've like tried to scroll through a lot of times to find different things, and they have everything like
Yeah.
big, more independent films. We have a lot of our friends' films that end up on there, which is great that people are able to see it. But the other thing that's really cool about Tubi is their commercials are in pods. So it's not like you're consistently like having to, have your experience just wrecked.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
every like 20-30 minutes they have like a 4 ad pod, and I mean that's perfect. Go to the bathroom, get a snack,
Yeah.
do what you need to do. So but I'm pretty sure those are on Tubi, so we will put those down below. But what are your final thoughts about this movie?
I mean, it was, even though this movie, I think it was like an hour and 20 minutes, it
Yeah.
didn't feel like that. I like movies like that, especially
Yeah.
horror. Like, it didn't, it, the whole like backstory of like hearing about Dennis and his backstory and, kind of learning about the couple, like everything was very, very quick and you
Yeah.
knew who they were. Um, and they didn't linger on that too much because sometimes I think that's what falters in horror a little bit
Yes.
for me. Sometimes is like we're spending too much time on the backstories to try to make
Hmm.
you care about these people when really you don't care about these people like
Yeah, I mean,
at
there's
the
a
end
way
of
to
the
do
day.
it and there's a way not to do it. Like in a
Yeah,
movie like this, you don't have to spend a lot of time. Now,
right.
if you're trained abuse on and you are trying to
Yes.
emotionally kapow people, you are going to
Yeah.
take the extra time to build that up because that is a core essential part of that movie, and it ties in with everything. But there's a way to do it and a way not to do it. So, I mean,
Yeah, and I think for this film, I think it does a great job
mhm.
overall. I will say the couple times that I laughed was when the hand is like
Yes,
kind of like moving on its own
yes,
and when it's like attacking them and they have the I think it's like a shelf or something they're using
yes.
to like protect them. I just laughed for like the whole
Yeah, it's
five
like the
minutes that that
wire,
was
it's like a wire shelf that like doesn't even, it's like
it's not
see-through.
helping.
And the funny thing about that is the items that we're seeing in the gas station, like with everything filmed, those were donated by local businesses to be used in the film.
That's awesome.
So that's great, a way to help the budget. But I'm just like, we couldn't have taken one of the solid shelves,
Yeah, we
not
couldn't
the
take
one
one of
that's
the
like the
solid shelves or maybe like find a bowl or something to put it over top.
something.
It was just
It was just it was.
and the way like I know all of the effects are practical, which is great, but the way it was like moving and like the camera like cutting back and forth, like trying to scare you and like be like, oh, is his hand gonna get him? Is it gonna get him? And it was just very comical to me, the whole thing. And even like the dog jump scare at the end,
Yeah,
or I use that in quotation marks because it was not
yeah, it
really a
wasn't.
scare. It was just like the spikes grow a little bit and then it's like and it's like zooms up on it and I was like, what is happening? What did I just watch?
That is true because that is horrifying. I will say I'm a cat person, okay? And a cat would not fuck with that shit. I'm just saying that cat would. I have a
Mm-mm.
tiny cat who is very fluffy. Her name is Brinley. And that cat looks like she's probably just a powder puff and is pretty slow. But I mean, she would book it out of there.
Oh
Like
yeah.
she would be
Oh yeah.
like, psh. I feel like dogs are so loyal that they like go towards the thing where cats are
Hmm.
like, I'm loyal, but I'm loyal with common sense.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to stick my neck out for you like that because I have to survive. So I feel like we need to see more cats surviving because let's be honest,
Right.
they're going to survive. So, I mean, for us, when we were doing the aliens, we talk about Ripley's cat, and we're like, that was the best part of her coming out of Alien is she didn't leave her cat behind. She did not leave her cat
Nope.
behind.
Hey.
So, I mean, save the cats. That's all I'm saying in that. But no, I mean that too was just like I'm like, oh my god, and the growling, like
Yeah, I was like, come on now.
I
Come on
will say
now.
this might be a me thing, and this is going to be so horrible to say, but it's like those guys on TikTok that try to do the thirst traps for book talk and really really don't hit the mark, and they're trying to do like the I'm an alpha male or whatever. I've like come across some of them, and I'm just like, no. Like, unless you're Henry Cavill and you're growling like, he does that with The Witcher and stuff. Unless you're
Mhm,
somebody
mhm.
that like has done that and could do something like that, like get the fuck out of
Right.
here. Like,
It also reminds me of those cringy TikToks where it's like, um, the people that think they're in anime and they're like, you know what I'm talking about?
yes, I know what you're talking about. I do know what you're talking about. So my feed is full of weird things, so I do know what you're
Yeah,
talking about.
it comes up on my For You page sometimes on TikTok, and
We're not coming for the actual like the cosplayers and the people that
oh, no,
go
no,
out
no,
and
no,
do
no,
that. It's
no,
the people that
it's
like
the
are
cringe, like I
I know.
don't even know how to explain
Yeah,
it,
it's
but
more or
hopefully it
less
like
like they're trying to like they're not even trying to cosplay. They're trying to it's almost like they're trying to I don't even know how to say it, but they're trying it's almost like they're trying to make fun of the anime in a
yeah,
way. Like it's not like they're taking it seriously because I follow
yeah,
some cosplayers that like are out of this fucking world
yeah,
with their
yeah,
stuff. And I mean, that's fantastic. But some of them are just obviously like making fun of the genre. And it doesn't it's just like, sir, please go back in your cage. Like nobody rattled your chain. Nobody
yeah.
asked you to do this on a Tuesday.
Yeah, no one asked you to put up the ring light and
Yeah, yeah.
do this
Yeah, nobody
video,
held
please.
a fake gun to your head and said, "Please do this." Like, let's bring that back on reel it back in.
Yeah,
So, we're trying to fight the TikTok ban, not give them more fuel to say this is this.
yeah, I was gonna say maybe they have a point.
I mean,
Say about 50% of
some,
TikTok is
yeah,
like,
some of the deeper
yeah,
keep the
like,
Reddit and our part,
yeah,
those ones are
let's
fine.
separate the two. Yeah.
Those ones are fine. So the other ones, the more cringier ones, yeah, just the trash
You
that
gotta
way.
go. Yeah.
It's that way. Follow the trash pandas. They will lead you out, kind of way. So yeah, though this movie it's a fun time. It's a good time. It is very much it kind of like how we talked about with Sharkula with Steve. Um, this is not meant to be like a revolutionary horror. And I think what we've kind of forgotten as horror fans is not everything needs to be that way. Like the horror genre is what it is
Yeah.
because there are so many different levels. And people, if you don't like this, that's fine. But every form is valid. And this is just a good time. This is something to watch with your friends, talk about, be like, hey, this movie's weird. You know, it's weird, it's interesting, it's a different take, let's watch it. You know, I
It's funny
mean,
without being intentionally
yeah,
like
listen, I've spent worse Thursday nights or Friday nights, I I've had a worse dating history than watching a movie like this. So spend time with your friends, watch a fun movie, get a giggle. We did that. So before this podcast, I kind of formulated this during COVID, during the pandemic. And I'm like, okay, what is something I could do? I always wanted to do something in horror. So I got on Clubhouse on the horror rooms, and they had a 24-hour horror room. And we watched the dumbest shit. We really did. Like we would pop in at certain times, and if some of us were like insomniatic or we're having a hard time sleep, we were like, hey, let's just watch this. So like we watched dumb shit. Like I remember watching The Pool, which is like a movie from Thailand about getting stuck in a pool after it's drained out, and it's like a whole thing. And there's a cameo by the local Pizza Hut because they gave money to the movie, so there's like a whole scene, and it's like a crocodile or whatever. But like we watched those. I've watched Attack of the Killer Donuts, like other kinds of films that are just stupid and silly. But then there are other ones that were fantastic, and that's how you kind of find out the good from the bad. So, I think they actually watched Zombie Ass too. I was not a part of that, but there is a movie called Zombie Ass out there. If you did not know,
Now you know.
now you know. But I mean, just dumb movies. And listen, Steve does that all the time on Bucket of Chum, and I will tell you, we love him for it
We
because
love it.
how would
Someone needs
you
to do it.
how would you not know? Like, you would not know the level of ridiculous without Steve being like, yeah, I watched it. Like, Steve really is out there doing it for the people.
He's doing the Lord's work.
He really is. So, but I mean, if stupid and silly is not your, jam, it's totally fine to skip over this, but just give it a watch, give it a chance. It doesn't have to be something revolutionary. Some of my favorite movies probably people don't like. Like I am a huge Gerard Butler person and I love Dracula 2000. People hate him as Dracula, but I'm like, it's Gerard Butler as Dracula.
I mean, what's not to
And
love?
he's obsessed with the female lead. And it's like a whole I was more offended that she chose not him and the guy that she chose. Like I'm more offended by that. So, you know, people could think that that's not the greatest Dracula movie. You know what? I don't care. I watch some dumb shit and that's fine. I'm okay with it. I don't think it's dumb. I think it's great and fantastic. And I will probably end up with a restraining order from Gerard Butler one day for all the times I've talked about the movie.
I
But
mean,
it's been an honor if I do. So,
listen, you got his autograph
right.
if that's the case, right?
I mean, he had to sign it at some point. He really is going to think that I'm just unhinged if he ever listens to this. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. I have ADHD, so that's one of my hyper fixations. It's fine. Um, but no, I mean, just watch something. I mean, that's how you find some of the greatest movies. I found some really great ones by doing that, met some really great people. So just, expand your mind. And if you hate it, guess what? You only spend an hour and something watching it. It's fine.
And it was
It
free on Tubi.
it was
Like,
free. Yeah, you didn't have to pay for it, so it's okay.
yeah.
So check it out on Tubi. Josh, where can they find you at?
Well, listeners, I have been Josh. I'm the ghostess with the mostest over on Super Scary Podcast. You can find me on all of the socials on Instagram and Facebook at Super Scary Podcast. If you enjoy what I do over here, you can email me at superscarypodcast@gmail.com. Let me know your thoughts. And I release every Monday on your favorite podcast streamer.
Yeah, you do. I listened to it today. So definitely go check out the current episodes. You have a lot of great and unique guests. And thank you for coming on. This was fun. Um,
Absolutely.
this was a good time. I'm glad that I'm slowly learning that every single person we come into contact with in the horror genre that are podcasters, we all go on tangents. So tangent crew,
Tangents
locked
are
and loaded.
required. Like,
Tangents really are like you got to be passionate about something. So we
exactly.
all, have our cross to bear.
Yes.
So we're just a little bit more passionate because we talk about this all the time. So you could forgive us for that, but we're just going to keep doing it.
Yeah. And
So
and listeners, you'll be able to hear Cassandra on my podcast soon,
yes.
in a couple weeks. When is this episode coming out? Do you know?
This is probably coming out in like 2 or 3 weeks. So
Oh,
Probably
okay.
the
So I
same.
think, yeah, probably around the same time. Anyway, so about mid-May, you will have an episode from me with Cassandra
Mm,
on it, and little sneak peek, we're talking about 28 Days Later, which may or may not have similar themes to this movie,
it really does.
unintentionally.
Unintentionally really does have similar themes. And it's crazy because the first time that you asked, when you asked about the list, and 28 Days Later is one of the first, I think, movies I watched on DVD when it came out, like horror movie wise.
Oh, all right.
So I mean, Cillian Murphy, like, come on, he was always hot, and now people are like, he's hot. He was always hot. Like,
Yeah,
he's just gotten hotter. Like, he's Benjamin buttoning it, okay? He
yeah,
went from like really hot to like super hot. I mean,
yeah,
Peaky Blinders really did that. Like him as a
yeah.
gangster, just, but I mean, like, he's hot. So hot man zombies. It's a no
What
brainer.
more could you ask for?
Really, what more? So we will definitely, if this comes out around the same time, we will link it down below, or I will come back once that episode airs and link it to this as well. But definitely check both of these podcasts out. If you are not subscribed onto our YouTube, do so. You can see all of our facial expressions and see all the fun we get to have over here on YouTube. So it's just a wild ride, but until next time, it's me, Cassandra from the Horrorcraft Podcast. Thank you, Josh, for coming on, and we will see you in the next one. Bye, and stay spooky.
Bye.